Pattern number 38, a pretty pattern for a baby's shoe, from Exercises in Knitting. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Betsy Bush in Marquette, Michigan, January 2008. Exercises in Knitting by Cornelia Me. Pattern number 38. A pretty pattern for a baby's shoe. Cast on 30 stitches. Knit 8 rows, increasing 1 at the beginning of each. Knit 12 rows, increasing 1 at the beginning of every other row for the toe. Knit 4 rows without increasing. You will now have 44 stitches on the needle. Let off 32 on a third needle, and knit the remaining 12 stitches backwards and forwards for 30 rows. Cast on 32 stitches. Knit 4 rows. Knit 12 rows, decreasing 1 at the beginning of every other, at the same end that you before increased. Knit 8 rows, decreasing 1 at the beginning of every row. Cast off. This completes the foot part, except the little bit that is let in to shape it better, for which take up 12 stitches along the increased part of the toe, and knit 10 rows, decreasing 1 at the beginning of every other one at the end nearest the casting on. For the instep, take up the 32 stitches on each side and 16 across the toe, knit 2 plain rows all round, and cast off. Then take up the same number all round, but from the bottom of these 2 rows, and knit 2 rows all round. Then place the 32 stitches on each side onto separate needles. With the 16 stitches across the toe, knit 2 plain rows, taking up 1 of the 32 stitches at the end of each row, and knitting it together with the last stitch. Next row. Knit 2, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slipped stitch over the knitted one. Bring the thread forward. Knit 1, bring the thread forward, seam 1. Pass the thread back, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slipped stitch over the knitted one, bring the thread forward, knit 1, bring the thread forward, seam 1, pass the thread back, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slipped stitch over the knitted one, bring the thread forward, knit 1, bring the thread forward, seam 1. Next row. Knit 2 plain stitches at each end, and seam the remaining stitches. Continue the pattern and plain rows alternately till 24 rows are done, remembering to knit 1 of the side stitches with the last of each row. Then take the stitches on each side onto the same needle with the center ones, and knit 5 plain rows. Next row. Make a stitch, seam 2 together, make a stitch, seam 2 together. This is to form a row of holes for the ribbon to pass through. Knit 2 plain rows. Continue the plain and pattern rows, as in the instep, till 36 rows are done. Knit 4 plain rows, and cast off. End of Pattern 38.